Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks so much for tuning in. Well, I've finally gotten around to finishing this Saab update. It's the second installment of our Road to a Million video series. Just to quickly recap, my first car, as many of you know by now, was a 1997 Saab 900 SE convertible that I got in 2004, hence the name Saab Kylo 4. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the channel can hit 1 million subscribers towards the end of this year. So I bought this car, I don't know, 2-3 months or so ago. I wanted to clone it to look exactly like my first car and do a bunch of videos like vlogs and stuff, giving you guys a behind the scenes look over the next few months in anticipation of putting up the proper in-depth review and road test when the channel hits 1 million subscribers as my special treat video, I guess. It's going to be very, very special for me, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. But anyway, so this video is going to basically be talking about what's like living with this Saab for the past few months, what I've done to it. I've actually done a lot of stuff to it, both cosmetically and mechanically. No surprise there. As I talked about in my prior video of my friend Chris and I driving down to Florida to pick this car up, this is a 1995 model, so it's 2 years older than my first car, but it's basically identical. I mean, the spec, the colors, everything. The only big difference, this one has the 2.5 liter V6 instead of my car, which had the turbo 4-cylinder. There was a few trim pieces and stuff, some little things that were different between this car and my car. So I bought all those pieces, including the wheels, the reflector panel that goes on the trunk deck lid, as well as this beautiful wood dash bezel to really liven up the interior a bit. So I'm going to walk you through the process on installing some of these parts. We won't go too heavy because I'm sure people aren't watching this video to learn how to completely disassemble the dash in a 21-year-old Saab 900, but it'll still be pretty cool, and you can kind of see the transformation. I mean, this car just looks absolutely phenomenal. I mean, cosmetically, it's one of the nicest 900s I've ever seen. I mean, it's beautiful. We'll also hit the road, strap up some GoPros, and talk about my experiences with the car, like the repairs that I've done to it. I mean, as I have it right now, this car drives like an absolute dream. It's basically a brand new 900. Alright, so before we start installing all of the parts to clone my car, I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering what the car's been like to live with over the last few months and how much does it really cost to own a 21-year-old Saab. You know, you have the purchase price, and that's all set and good because depending on mileage and condition, these cars can be had for pretty cheap. And they're nice cars when they're running good and working properly. So that kind of goes along into this next thing that I thought was kind of funny. So when I first picked up the car at the dealership in Florida, there was a Volvo repair shop across the street. And when we were filming our initial vlogs and stuff, my friend Chris and I, one of the technicians was shouting, "It's another Saab story!" And also, "Call a tow truck." Story. And I was like, this car is great. What are they talking about? I was just so elated with excitement buying my first car all over again that I thought they were just being jerks. But you know what? They were being kind of truthful, actually, because I knew the car needed a little bit of work, but I didn't really know how much work I was going to have to do to it to make it into this wonderfully driving cruiser that I have now. So the first thing is one of the tonneau motors for the convertible top. Very, very common problem on these cars. I had the same problem with my first car. Basically, when the tonneau cover would lift up, it would make the most awful grinding noise. Like the gear and stuff in the motor was totally stripped out, and after a month it was just shot. It was gone. So I ended up buying one on eBay. That one on eBay didn't work, so I had to get it swapped out for another one, which meant the dealership, well, I ended up getting it fixed up at a Cadillac dealership because I didn't know of any independent places, and it worked out really well. But the dealership ended up wasting a little bit of time. I had to pay for a little bit of extra labor. But long story short, new motors in, all working great. So yeah, wonderful. The other big ticket item, this car had a little bit of a resting vibration at idle, like when you came to a stop sign or a stoplight. And I thought it might be like throttle body and stuff because on my Avalanche, I had kind of a similar issue. Ended up being motor mounts. I think there was 3 of them. That was a little over $1,000 of parts and labor. So that stung quite a bit, but my gosh, did it make a difference. That was some of the best money that I've spent on this car. It is so smooth, not just at idle, but just driving around. I mean, the car feels better. It's wonderful. So yeah, that alone made the car feel a million times better. The other thing that I had to do, just one day, maybe about a month ago, I pulled the car out of the garage and there was oil all over the ground. I was like, that's new. So ended up having to do the valve cover gaskets and the oil pan gasket, which was also quite a lot because of, you know, the labor and stuff. That's the one thing. I mean, parts aren't crazy expensive. It's the labor. And taking the exhaust manifolds off, because you had to do that, the bolts ended up breaking, so I had to do a little bit of extra labor on that. I was like, God. It's like, you know, with a car like this, it's almost like you're going, and you're like, I gotta crest this peak eventually. We gotta be done with the repairs at some point. You just gotta keep soldiering on, like, just knowing that, you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's gonna be all said and done. And that's not including all of the parts that I bought to clone the car. The wheels were one thing. I paid like $300 for them. They're in really good shape for 21-year-old wheels. They're the same wheels that my car had, and while they're not everybody's taste, you know, this three-spoke design, they're a classic Saab style that was used a lot on the classic 900 and stuff, and I love them. They measure 16 inches compared to the multi-spoke 15-inch wheels that were on the car, and the 15s didn't look that bad, but I wanted the ones that came on my car, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're making this car just like my first car was. So, and there was a little bit of shake with the car at highway speeds and stuff, and I knew the tires that were on those wheels were not the best. So with the larger wheels, I obviously had to put new tires on it, and that was wonderful. The car is also very, very smooth. It actually handles a little bit better, and it's a lot smoother on the highway. So, you know what? I put a lot of money into this car and stuff, more than I'll ever get out of it, but this has been an absolute labor of love, because what I like doing, I like tinkering with cars. I think it's so much fun, and I don't know a lot of stuff mechanically as far as repairs and all that, so obviously I'd have to spend a little bit more on labor than someone who's good at DIY projects, but I'm really good at tinkering cosmetically and replacing panels and pieces and all that. So while it's cars, obviously, for any enthusiast out there, it's an expensive hobby, but it's so much fun and so rewarding at the end of the day, where you take a car that was already just breathtaking cosmetically, you do all the mechanical work and stuff, spend the money, and then you can enjoy an experience of owning an older car that's in some ways a lot more unique than a lot of the newer cars out there, and it just delivers a different driving experience that, you know, I test out a lot of new cars and stuff, and a lot of expensive cars, regular cars, you name it, but at the end of the day, it's really fun being able to drive a car like this, where you actually have to concentrate on driving. They're just very simple and uncomplicated. It's a wonderful experience. You know, we're having fun with this car too, and keeping in the spirit of being jovial and stuff, I ended up ordering a custom Swedish plate for the front that says Money Pit. I just think it's so funny, and I've taken this car to a bunch of places so far, not just in traffic, but to the grocery store and stuff, and people get an absolute kick out of it. It's so funny because you come up to the car and you're like, dang, that car is clean for a 95, and then I'm like, let me tell you what it's taken to get to this point. And they're like, okay. So let's go ahead and jump into the cloning process. I've been waiting for this for so long. I'm so excited. So let's go ahead and kick this thing off by the most complicated project, and that's replacing the gray dashboard panel here with one of the OEM wood panels. This was always one of my favorite features in my car. It just adds a nice touch of elegance. I'm not sure if it's real or not. I know they offered like a genuine California wood treatment at some point, but anyway, it still looks really nice, and for such an old part, it's in great shape. This one's actually from a newer 9.3, so it had like the little trick cup holder built into the information display right here, but all of it should be the same dimensions, and I'm really looking forward to getting it in here and dressing it up. I mean, it's all black and stuff everywhere. This will just really make things pop. It's a pretty straightforward process, not too complicated. The only thing that you need is a 10mm socket wrench and a torque screw for a bunch of screws located all over the place. Everything kind of pops in and out. I went ahead and did a trial and error before I made this video, so things will go a little bit more smoothly. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this in. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and undo the battery, just since we're working with wires and so the interior lights don't drain the battery and all that good stuff, just to better err on the side of caution. So let me go ahead and walk you guys through the process real quick. Like I said, it is pretty self-explanatory, but just a couple tips and tricks. Down below here, I realized that it's definitely going to be easier to go ahead and remove the lower dash panel. That way you can get your hand back there and pop out these little switches. There's a bunch of torque screws. There's a couple that holds the OBD sensor that you have to undo, and there's a few in the fuse panel over here. Everything else just kind of pops out. You need some radio removal tools to take out like the DIN main display right here, a couple screws to take out the upper portion. Of course, I'll show that in just a second. I'm going to try to get away with not having to take the glove box off. I've seen that a couple times on the internet where people did that, but I don't see that being necessary. Now the next step is going to be removing the driver information system and the analog clock, as well as the radio head unit. You need a couple things to be able to do this properly. One, the top right here, like some of the directions I found called for some sort of screws. I cannot remember what they're called, and to be honest, I don't know how to describe different screws to begin with. So these are the screws that I'm using. It's just some leftover from a construction project. They have really fine threads, but just trial and error, I guess. You would stick them into either side, screw them in just a little bit, and basically use them as handles to pull out the information display. And just like the switches over there, everything's pretty simple. It comes right out, and then you want to disconnect the electrical cable. The next step is just a little bit trickier, and that's removing the radio. You need two little tools. I found these on eBay for like $2. I think they call this a DIN or DIN radio, or whatever the proper terminology is, but there's two holes on either side. They're basically retaining clips. So these right here fit in on either side. You push them all the way in, and that basically releases the clips all the way in, and then you reach behind the radio and just start pushing from the back. It might take a little bit of shimmying. It's not the easiest thing to get out, but just keep working it from the back and the entire head unit will come out. You might want to move that wiper stalk up just a little bit. And there's the radio and a whole bunch of cables to disconnect. Now it's time for some more hex screws, at least as far as the ones I can see. There's one right there, two underneath the hood of the instrument cluster, one up there, one on the right-hand side of the steering column, and two at the bottom of where the main radio unit was. So let's go ahead and start tackling these. I had to remove the steering column, top and the bottom, to be able to get the clearance around for the bottom of the bezel and the curved part underneath. So now it's just going to lift off. And we're free. Out with the old, in with the new. Cool, so we are ready to put the dash bezel in, or the new old wood dash bezel. Now that we have the turn signal stalks out, moving the vents around to fit them into the holes. Look how much simpler that was now that we did everything correctly. Once again, we're heading over to North Point Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. They do a lot of maintenance on our cars for me, and like putting exhausts and tires and all that. Real professional folks. It's a nice place to film, so thanks again for allowing us to come in with our equipment. They're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, so you should definitely check those guys out if you're in the market for a new Chrysler product or just need some general maintenance done. So anyway, these wheels are going to be pretty sweet. They were always some of my favorite features of my 900, and it's really funny to post like on Instagram and stuff, because I didn't realize how polarizing they were. People either really love them or really hate them. You have one end of the spectrum, they're like, oh man, that's amazing, it's going to completely transform the look, awesome upgrade, can't wait to see them, yada yada yada. And then you have the other side where they're like, those are the ugliest wheels I've ever seen, I like the other ones better, good job at ruining everything, you know, I hate them, I think I'm gonna throw up, yada yada yada, you know. You gotta love the internet and stuff. All right, let's get the new wheels and tires put on. You know, love it or hate it, it's a really cool style that I like, and it was one of my favorite features about my 900. One more step into completing this project. Alright, so we have one more piece to put on the Saab. It's the big reflector panel that goes in between the taillights, basically to replace this painted section right here. I believe this came out in 97 for like 97, 98, 900s. It'll add a little bit of extra contrast to the rear and basically make it look like one giant taillight going across the trunk lid, which was always a cool feature of mine, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is a pretty simple process overall. I mean, I went ahead and walked through it so I can give you guys a proper demonstration, but this piece right here is held in by these little clips that you would turn like half a turn with a flathead screwdriver and they basically fall out, so that's really easy. There's a couple hex screws right here and a bunch of bolts on the inside that hold the panel in. There's a couple like little plugs we're probably gonna have to undo for the license plate lights, but yeah, it's all pretty straightforward. All right, so let's go ahead and take off this little handle, just with 2 little hex screws. Next, we'll go ahead and start taking out all these little retaining clips all the way around. All right, now that the retaining clips are out, this just falls away. The next step is going to be removing the 7 10mm bolts that hold the tail panel in place. There's 3 in the middle and 2 at the outer edges. And there we go. All right, let's go ahead and fit the reflector panel. Nice. At this point, everything else is pretty much a reversal of what we already did, so go ahead and plug in the license plate lights and bolt everything back up. All right, we are done. So that basically finishes the transformation and completing an identical replica to my first car. This was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. There's going to be a lot of content surrounding the Saab over the coming months as the channel starts to approach 1 million subscribers. It's amazing just the fact that we've already passed the 900,000 mark, and it's just so awesome and so humbling. I'm going to be giving you guys a behind-the-scenes look at everything surrounding Saab Carlo 4, about how I get my press cars, like what's it like to do what I do on a daily basis, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you had any specific questions surrounding anything related to the channel and how it's run, please feel free to comment in the comment section below and let me know your questions. I'll be sure to answer those and cover everything in the future videos. So until next time, be sure to stay tuned. It's always a lot more where that came from. Take care, everyone.
We'll stay here on the cone and then towards the other one.
I almost expected that to break, but not us to break the other one. He had to put 2 body shims under each bolt and stuff, which